Hey guys, welcome to another episode of A3U Review Night. This is the panel discussion version of the A3 Review, and we appreciate all your feedback from the previous episode, and it looks like we're going to continue, and here we are back again.
That's right. For those of you who have not seen this yet, or, well, the last inaugural episode, this is how it works. We get a whole bunch of new toys. We get some people from the community, as well as, me, Alex, and our resident reviewers to take a crack at playing with and discovering a new product. And then they tell us what they think about it, and we grill them. So that's basically how it works.
So, of course, you guys know me. I'm Alex, and we have Boris, as always, and then there's Jay. And let's meet our guest reviewers for this episode. Today we have...
Hi, I'm Scott, and in the world of Transformers, I saw the original movie in the theater, the animated series, and when I collect all different types, third-party, original, whatever I like, and I collect all the comics as well, and have most of the first print issues, so I'm quite a fan, and I love all things Transformers.
And we also have Bob.
I'm Bob, and I pretty much collect everything, as Boris will tell you. I buy a lot of stuff. Third party, Hasbro, Takara, pretty much anything that if I see it and I like it, then that's what I'll collect.
And we also have Brian over here.
I'm Brian. I also collect Masterpiece, mostly the G1 characters, and there's some third party and Takara stuff as well.
All right. You have met our guest reviewers. Now, let's talk about what we're here to talk about.
Yes, thanks, Alex. Today we got a couple of cool pieces. We have Mayhem Mekanics, which is kind of a new IP, but super cool transformable toy. Not from the Transformers world, but still super awesome. And then we do have the Generation Toys Sarge or Sergeant. Now, this is the domestic version. There is a version that has like Chinese lettering on it, but we'll explain that when we talk about the car mode and everything. But it's essentially not streetwise for their new not Defensor project. Gotta make sure. So, without further ado, we did go through it and play with these toys. So, gentlemen, let's start with the Mayhem Mechanics. Scott, you had a good hands-on with it.
I did.
What did you think? I saw you were playing with the little guy a lot, too.
Yep.
And you had a chance to kind of see it in the bot mode and play with it. What are your overall thoughts when you were first playing with it in terms of articulation and playability?
Right off the bat, I mean, articulation really isn't a problem with this guy. It's really solid, and he does pose quite well. The smaller guy, the engine type combiner guy, he's very intuitive as well. He's got a lot of different abilities and a lot of ability to pose, a lot of ability to hold the other weapons, and all the weapons actually attach as well, which helps quite a bit.
Yeah, I saw you doing like the Hulk Hogan pose with
It's very easy to do the Hulkamaniacs. Give us a call out with a couple of these guys here, and it's quite fun inducing.
Yeah, it looked like he had quite a bit of fun factor to him.
Yeah.
And then I love that fact that he transforms into the chest piece, goes onto the bot mode. I think that part ultimately is a whole lot of fun.
I did like that he stores in the bot mode as well, so that there isn't a lot of extra stuff laying around. You can get a lot of stuff quite easily attached, I find, as I don't do it easily.
Easily, easily.
And this is one of my minor criticisms in this case. But
Oh, there you go. Oh, it really snaps in.
which I like. That's not a criticism so much as
you know what thing are.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there's plenty of places you can pin this stuff on here pretty easily. All kinds of different items. The small guy can even hold the larger weapons as well. So storage and posability was really a stronger point with this guy, I found.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I found like some pegs and stuff for all the small little guns and stuff.
Yep.
So, having said that, you guys also had a chance, to, of course, to play with the larger bot. How was the larger bot compared to the smaller one in terms of articulation and whatnot? It seemed like it almost wasn't as much fun. I mean, not to say it wasn't any fun.
No, it was. Yeah, I agree. A little of both. Like the larger and smaller bots were quite the same and different, if that makes sense. But the smaller bot I found articulation wise was both bots were as articulated, but the smaller bot was a lot less clunky, for lack of a better term. The larger bot had a little bit of issues when you get it going, and you get a lot of this kind of issue here where it's a little bit of kind of like, okay, I'm gonna, and pop that back and kind of get it right back to normal. It does work, and it is fantastic the way it fits in and the quality is there, but it's just a little bit counterintuitive the way it moves around. And as for the smaller bot, we can see he instantly becomes quite a bit more intuitive, as we can just in a heartbeat get him kind of posed up into just about anything.
Right. Overall, would you say that the design suffered a bit from it, or it was a design like still a great outing considering they had all those kind of
I think it's like
things to tackle?
It's just so close. Like, I think the design is good, the color's good, the plastic's good. Like, I love so much about this toy. I think the subject matter and the just the general lack of intuitive transformation and moving with the larger bot only is maybe a little bit of a setback.
Got it. And then kind of jumping off of that, I noticed that Bob, you had a little bit more control over the actual transformation as you were playing through it. Based on some of the things that Scott said too, did it translate into how it transformed? Was the intuitiveness not quite there as well, or was it? How was it for you when you were actually taking it and transforming it?
It definitely wasn't intuitive. You get whether they're official toys or third party, well designed bots. Usually, you can take a look at it, move a few parts, and you get where things are supposed to go. So you can generally transform things without the instructions. Whereas this one, we don't have the instructions because it's a display sample.
Mm-hmm.
But had to do a little bit of figuring out to get it going. Had to look at a few pictures because I couldn't find the instructions, and I think I got it to what it was supposed to look like in motorcycle mode, but I'm not 100% sure either.
I think you got it pretty good.
It's pretty good. It's pretty tight.
Yeah.
So I found a few little tabs and clips that should go in. So I think it's right, but again, it wasn't quite as intuitive as I thought it should be.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I agree with Scott. It's there's definitely some quality there. The plastic quality is great. It doesn't feel like it's flimsy. It doesn't feel cheap.
I agree.
There's a nice weight to it considering there's no die cast. The accessories and the options are really great. Different heads and different weapons you can get, and I believe there's probably other accessory kits coming and things like that you can add to it. So from that standpoint, there's a bit of playability, but from a transformation standpoint, it's unless you get used to the actual transformation, it is kind of tough to kind of go play with it back and forth, transforming it back and forth.
Yeah, totally. And for the viewers at home that aren't actually haven't checked out what this is all about, it is an independent product, a fan product, and it is. The whole concept of the story is, these riders kind of merge with these motorcycles, become this awesome robot, and they all have different character types. There was a Kickstarter that was done that allowed people to fund kind of some exclusive characters, and then now this one is one of the retail characters that are coming out, and there's a whole line of them. They're called the Unrestables, of course, and I highly recommend you do check out the project. We'll have the links displayed in the comments below. But having said that, though, guys, knowing that it's a fan project, and especially, I know you, Scott, you do a lot of building. You're an artist yourself. Does this inspire you? Like, being from that background, does this give you enough to kind of buy into this?
These guys, I think, have done a huge, like, Herculean effort as far as getting this out there with the quality it is. Like, right now I find, like I said, this, same as Bob too, this quality is really good. The plastic is good. The colors right away, and the stencils, I didn't even expect to be so good until I just walked in and saw it. I think as far as a third party, small, trying to get this done kind of company, these guys have done a really great job. I think my only criticism would be that there's basically just two things. The subject matter isn't really as much as for me, and the negative space, and the fact that negative space isn't always quite so easily managed would be literally my only criticisms. For the most part, it's really solid. Otherwise, maybe a little weight in the feet or something with the transform and things like that, and that's always something I sort of pick at. But and you do get so many other cool things, like these other, they make up for it in a lot of areas. You do get a lot of extra pieces, and you essentially get 2 transformers, and the price point is really pretty spot on.
Yeah,
or
120
or very good. It's a good price.
120 USD is pretty decent.
If you're into this subject matter, I would say 100%. I would say, for me personally, I think these guys are doing a great job. For me to get 100% behind it, I would need to just a little bit of adjustment.
And Brian, I mean, as you mentioned, you collect a lot of official lines, some third party that probably represent more of the official characters. Knowing that this doesn't have any, of that kind of universe that you're interested in, does something like this appeal to, your collecting style? Based solely on the fact that, aesthetically what it looked like and how it was as a bot. Does it actually appeal?
Yeah, it's a cool toy. I probably echo a lot of what Scott said about it. I like the quality of it. I like the tamper-graph, the instrument gauge it has and stuff like that is cool.
Yeah,
it's very well articulated, especially the little guy.
Yeah.
I probably would have trouble fitting into my collection though, because as you say, it doesn't really have any mythology behind it that I'm familiar with. I'd like to see it come in some different colors. I'm guessing they'll probably have different colors, maybe some remolds of it. It'd be nice to see like a set of them together, what they look like.
I
could see maybe subbing in as like some Junkions in my collection. That'd probably be the closest place I could find for it. I want to like it though. It's a pretty cool toy.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought that up. There is definitely different colors. There's, I believe, the other retail version. Sorry, the name escapes me right now. This is Burley, by the way. It's a white motorcycle, and there's also there's an exclusive that was pretty cool. The Tomo was this red kind of Akira-esque bike, which is cool. I mean,
I'd like to see,
yeah, always love like a little nod to it. But I think Brian brings up a really kind of good point to speak off of, and that is, it is coming from or getting into the transformable world, being its own IP. It's so hard to get out of that shadow of having to be part of the Transformers universe, right?
Yeah, it's got to stand on its own. So.
Yeah, and it's I do think, like Scott said, it's definitely a huge effort.
It's one of those toys you want to get in your hand and kind of decide then, and really get in and look at it and have a look at it.
It's pretty fun. I wanted to also mention that I like that it does fit on the bike really well, and you can get his hands on the handlebars.
Yeah.
And he looks natural riding the bike, so it works well.
It feels like, for a new IP like this, really having some of that playability is great, but you really have to have this kind of fresh attitude towards it, almost like when you were a kid and you didn't care about the stuff.
Yeah, like if I was a kid, this is the best toy ever.
Yeah,
I got no problems with this toy if I'm 12 years old.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's when I kind of approach it with my fresh eyes and kind of try not to think about any story. I just look at it as just a toy. it is very fun. But yeah, I think this is a great topic. I mean, I think it's really tough for anyone trying to get into this transforming universe with a new IP, but I think it's also necessary. I think, as much as I love Transformers, I don't want it to be the only thing, and I know it's not the only thing. I mean, we've had other franchises like GoBots and Machine Robo, to some extent. Some other Japanese anime lines that cross into sort of mecha and transformables. But still,
there's room, right?
like there's nothing that's fully like that kind of competes with something like Transformers, which is a shame because it would really give us more choice, more options, and more potentially just more interesting ideas than some of the more recycled ones that we've seen.
Yeah, and you guys, what's interesting is that after hearing all your thoughts about like you guys looking at the quality of it and also mentioning that you don't know if it's something that you would buy just because of the IP, it actually reminds me of I don't know if you guys remember a Spawn series called the Nitro Riders. Basically,
Right.
Yeah, right. Like all the Spawn series before that were based off the comics, and you knew those characters. But then they spun off into something called the Nitro Riders, which was an original concept, which had no connection with the comics at all. And people were saying like, this kind of weird. The quality is there, like it's a good toy, but I can't really get into it. But you appreciate like the technical side. I mean, it's a really well made toy and all that. But you either like it or you don't,
100%.
right?
I think maybe even like on a marketing standpoint,
Yeah.
I don't think this toy was necessarily promoted as much as it could have been. I saw this toy a long time ago, a couple years ago, on videos at TFCon, and and it kind of went away and then back. And I'm sure, and I mean, again, what Boris is saying, it's not easy for guys to come up with this.
Yeah.
Sure, they had their share of troubles, and but then when it came back, I don't think there was enough of a hey, we're back. So there's no like, hey, look at me, right? And I think that's maybe where people might not have noticed or not, or maybe, I mean, it is still brand new, so.
I think the
maybe
challenge is
people are catching
definitely there, like to market a brand new IP like that. You're at TFCon, you're surrounded by all these other third-party products, which of course we recognize. We recognize all these characters. Then you bring out something new, you got to put that extra push to really make it stand out.
And also at TFCon, there wasn't really a chance for people to really play with it or really check it out. Like, it was on display so people could see it, but no one really got a chance to go and check out the quality.
Sure, yeah.
And with so many new third-party companies jumping up, not all of them have the best quality. Some of them are better than others. So there is a certain amount of weariness and caution upon. So people have to be careful.
Yeah.
And being brand new IP and not being able to play with it, I think people were just cautious because it's like you have a really cool motorcycle, but does the coolness match the end quality, or is it all prettiness and no substance?
Sure, that makes sense.
And I think that's why it's good that we're looking at it today, so people can actually see that there is something behind the pretty.
I think you're right, and I think the quality is hands down. It is there.
It's there.
The matter of the quality is definitely not in question, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
It's just like you said, like they might not have been able to see the colors. Maybe it was gray or a prototype, or.
And how will it fit in with my current collection, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I mean, it still remains to be seen, right? It's still launching, I guess, right? So
That's true. So work in progress.
see what happens, right?
Yep,
Like I could see someone doing a photo shoot of like one of those with the actual Akira motorcycle that's in real life, one of the nitro cycles, and a junkie on, and you could just do a comparison of all four motorcycles that people would collect. And I think something like that would really show people, like, even if you're just a motorcycle person, that there is a cool factor for it. Just, even if you don't care about it transforming, that is a nice motorcycle.
Yeah.
And seeing it in person, I instantly fell like another 40% more in love with it. Like the second I saw it in person.
Yeah.
It's just, even seeing it in person, just out of on the table, you're like, oh my god, that's actually really, really cool. Like it's got a lot of cool factors.
It's definitely a product that requires you to have that hands-on experience to really appreciate it.
You need to feel the love, right?
Yeah.
I think it's designed that way as well because you have that separate rider to be. It's kind of meant to be played with.
Yeah.
So, as for it being an original IP, I mean, it has the chance to bring in somebody that maybe that's not a Transformers person.
Yeah.
Maybe, like you say, maybe it's a bike person.
Sure.
Or
Yeah.
somebody that likes sort of the engineering, sort of robotics kind of thing. To put it in their little, have something on their little bedroom shelf or whatever.
Yep. Yeah.
But of course, the price point, although for sort of a third party we're used to these price points where it's actually not bad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, for a non-collector, that's kind of a $100+ US
Yeah.
is a little tough to get into.
Yeah.
And oddly enough, they'd probably be some of the best audience for it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's tough, right? Because it's it's not the costs are different when you're mass producing versus when you're producing a limited number like
Yeah.
this. So it has to be up the price. It has to be to whether to just break even or to make any kind of profit. So
Yeah.
it's tough because the audience you might be after might not be the market for it.
Yeah.
Very playable.
Yeah.
Very playable toy.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, it wasn't as intuitive a transformation, but I think once you get used to it, I think it's probably a very playable piece. Some pieces you kind of transform once or whatever, and you kind of pose it and you leave it on your shelf. You don't really do much with it. This one, there is that element of playing with it. And if they come out with other packs or other riders and a little more lore, maybe, and you get to kind of play around with it. Maybe like you said, like someone mentioned, get the other colors, get the other characters in there, and
it'll probably look good as a kind of a set as well.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think that
quite
value.
posable, good
Yeah, there you go.
articulations.
Look at that. I think the value will definitely be seen more once you have the other guys beside it.
Yeah.
If you have like a pack.
Yeah, pack. Yeah.
One thing I did want to note in particular as a superstar point from these guys is their hands. I have huge complaints about hands all the time, and they're either really spindly and tiny and they don't work, or they're really too big and clunky or whatever. But these hands are just stellar in my opinion. Just wanted to make that note because I really think more companies could use these hands. Honestly, they're pretty great.
Yeah, they got
People
good
look at hands.
articulation, and they actually they pose really well.
Yeah.
They hold the weapons very well as well.
You don't feel like you're gonna break them. A lot of the ones come with articulated hands and fingers, but they're typically on little tiny ball joints, and
Yeah.
they either fall off or you're gonna end up breaking them. Whereas this is we can really play with it, and it's still articulated, but it's solid.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
finding
agreed.
like it'd be tough to probably break this
Yeah.
toy unless you really try.
Well, to summarize, we'll move on to the next one. But sounds like the consensus is this is a great product. Maybe not a 10 out of 10, but being that it's first outing, excellent points on quality, design, and just general playability. And as a toy, definitely recommended to check it out. I think they're going to have some, struggles with the IP, but, hey, that's where it comes to you guys as the fandom to let these guys know whether you like the lore or not. And the only way to do that is to find out more about the lore, so definitely check out Mayhem Mechanics, The Unrustables. If anything, definitely snatch up one of these guys so that you can see hands-on how well it's done as a toy, and hopefully you'll like the story as well. So having looked at the Mayhem Mechanics independent IP, we're now going to jump over to something that does have lore. Of course, the Defensor, or not Defensor. But let's talk about the real Defensor. I mean, in the Transformers lore, Defensor was an amazing combiner for me, at least. I loved it. I mean, your kid, you love all the first responder vehicles, right? We have the not Streetwise here. So Generation Toys is taking a kick at the can, making their not Defensor. And basically, what we have here is kind of an updated look, Brian, at what Streetwise can be now, and I believe the car mode is now a Fair Lady, right? Z.
Yeah, he
Nissan
turns into
Fairlady.
the newer Nissan now, which I guess he was before. It was the older 240ZX, I think.
Was he the 240 ZX before? Oh yeah, I
think he was,
guess.
yeah.
I guess he was. Yes.
He's this now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have Defensor as a kid, but I know he's a pretty cool combiner. This is the first generation toy that I've actually had the chance to take a look at. I was pretty impressed. The quality, again, is there. I like the bot mode. I'm not wild about that car mode just because I want it to be, I'm slavish to the G1 style, so I like my classic car modes, even though they're terribly outdated now. But yeah.
You know, I feel like they would have, as outdated as it would be, it's a classic.
Fine.
I kind of feel like it would have been fine to go with the classic look.
I think maybe it would have been different from the other 3P that are doing the same thing. They've all gone all with modern cars.
Yeah.
So maybe go the other way. Go back to the old cars.
Classic definitely would have been a nice throw.
Yeah, so again, this might not fit with my collection because I prefer that, but in bot mode, I think it looks pretty good. I like the quality, the plastic feels good, the paint is outstanding. I think it's really nice. There's a lot of nice detail paint in, like the red bits are all highlighted here. The silver is really nice. There's paint on the weapons, which is always a good thing. There's translucent headlights that have like some silver paint underneath. So it's a really well-made toy, I think. I don't know if it's like my streetwise, but I think it's a good, solid effort. It's a bit light, and yeah, again, it's just the choices they made. I'm not sure if it's for me, but I think it's a good quality toy.
How did you feel about the transformation when you were kind of going through it? I saw there's a little bit of struggle there with you were on this as well, right, Jay?
Yeah.
Even with you went no instructions, and then
real man.
Brian was
YOLO all the time.
Yeah. Brian was a little bit more sensible to kind of take a look, maybe just take a little peek.
Well, even with the instructions, it was still there was some tolerances where it was just very, very tight, and like once you transformed it, they became looser. It's just there was just concerns on my part of where, as I kind of mentioned before, like some instructions in the past have not been exactly ideal for telling you what to do. So when something's really tight, you're worried you're going to break it. So
Only like 90%.
So for me, it was a lot of passing it off to Brian, saying, "Here, if you break it, I don't feel bad."
And Brian, you were echoing that too. You said like a lot of the tightness of the joints and everything kind of inhibited the intuitiveness of it because you thought maybe it's not supposed to be like that because it was so tight.
Yeah, I did have to look at the booklet because it packs in tightly to become the car mode. So it's pretty ingenious, but it's one of those toys where there's a lot of tabs. You got to make sure that you're not breaking something. It feels good, but there are some panels with tabs. You don't want to break that stuff. So, like, is this supposed to move? So I checked the book. Yeah, okay, it looks like it. The instructions are like line drawings, though. They're not photos. So it gives you a pretty good idea, but yeah, I wanted to be careful with it. I think if I had maybe transformed it back and forth a few times, I'd feel more comfortable with it. And again, it's my first G creation that I've been hands-on with, but
It's not your first G creation.
No, generation toy.
Generation toy. It's my first generation toy that I've touched, but I don't think I would have been able to transform it without the instructions.
Now, in terms of articulation and whatnot, how do you feel about that hands-on? Did it give you a good range of motion and everything for everything?
Yeah, it's quite posable. You can get him in some good poses. It's got all the joints you'd expect for it. It has a waist swivel as well. I think you can get him in some good dynamic poses.
I think that's one of the things I like about Generation Toys is that they do spend a lot of time in the bot mode, even though it's a combiner. Mm-hmm. It's something that I feel like a lot of companies, when they get into the combiners, they kind of forget about the bot modes a lot. A couple of companies come into mind. I'm not going to mention them. But definitely with Generation Toys, I think they go that extra mile. I found that Unique Toys recently with their Combaticons were kind of going that little extra
really
mile in the bot mode.
Too,
yeah.
Yeah, oftentimes one of the three modes is going to suffer.
The rubber wheels were a nice touch as well. Like,
I always find the Generation Toy head sculpts really nice.
Yeah, definitely. But you were saying that everything kind of tabs in like you'd expect from a Generation Toy figure, right? So.
I have a huge bias to Generation Toy. I'm a huge fanboy. That said, if I want to find something bad about it, I will. But I mean, for the most part, this toy is it's another Generation Toy creation. I think it's good. When it transforms, for me, not reading the instructions on today's Transformers is a lot different than not reading the instructions on old school Transformers. You know, today's Transformers, I'm like, I may as well get a college degree. And one thing I wanted to note in particular, Generation Toy, is that this is something why I'm more of a fanboy as well, is they do something really nice for you. Like, they do include instructions, which is unique often. Sometimes they don't. And in the case of Generation Toy, they often include something like this, which is actually how to get in touch with them, which seldomly anybody does. You get a nice, beautiful box where it's all wrapped up, and often to get it into this nice little package, they might have like a tab out of place or a little bit different than it should be. So you pull it out and you immediately think it's the way it is, and you're like, why am I breaking my toy? And you realize that there's a tab in the wrong position or something else. And in this case, I think we all had the same problem as well. The toy, we had a little bit of trouble with the knees here at first, and then once we played with it a little bit, we could see that there's just actually 2 hinges here. And it's true, it is a little hard to see sometimes on the instructions with various transformers, but once you get it all correct, it tabs in there quite easily. And I find this is a typical Generation Toy thing. They're very tight out of the package, which I really can't hate on, because that is something to me that makes a really good toy, because those joints do stand the test of time. As I say, it's easy and I'm having trouble with it.
The camera adds like 200% more
It
complexity.
adds
okay?
200 more complexity and 10 pounds.
Yeah.
The fact is, though, is it's really not that bad.
I think I have to say one thing about Generation Toy 2 is, like, for those of you that have played around with a lot of Generation Toy stuff, what I do like about a lot of the third-party companies that are consistent, you know, when you look at someone like Make Toys, Fence Project, back in the day, this product here, a lot of the Generation Toys products, they have certain kind of schemes where once you've kind of gone through some of their transformations, even with newer bots, you kind of know just where they're headed, and what you would expect from Generation Toys. You know, a lot of those little cues and those little goodies kind of pop up in. I found in the Sarge here as well. Like, I took one look at it and I kind of knew where they were headed as well, even without the instructions. So it is one of those things where I think, you know, nowadays for sure, when you're just getting into it, sometimes you're gonna have to take a peek in the instructions.
Like right now.
Yeah, don't don't feel like you're losing any pride by doing that. Yeah.
Don't worry about the ego, man. These are
Yeah.
these are tactics.
Hey, I use instructions for
few,
MP.
written instructions are only in Chinese, though.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, it still is a challenge. But yeah, like once you've transformed, you know, a Generation Toys figure, you kind of start seeing where they have those certain cues for you to do things.
And I find they almost always have a tab. Like, whenever I find the same thing with Bandai products. If I'm doing something where I'm forcing it or I feel like it's not working, it's probably my fault. And I find with Generation Toy, it's the same thing. Like, if the tabs are there for you, you just gotta kind of look for them.
That's true.
I do
Yeah,
have-
everything kind of plugs in solidly as long as you know where to go.
Yeah, you gotta think about it a little bit.
And it's not over-engineered. It's not like an X-Trans bots where, you know, things have to fold around each other at the same time. It's
You need a 3-year engineering degree for one of their toys.
yeah.
The ankles on this guy are a little different. They're not quite the same. Like, we get the full pose split, but to do our karate chop move, we can't quite do it because there's just a little bit less here. So I could use a little bit of ankle to the outside, a little high side.
Doesn't allow you to adjust the rotation of the foot to kind of put the balance where it needs to be, right? Yeah.
There's
Pretty
also
clean
that
overall
extra
on the
amount of
back as well. I like that.
It is.
It'll be interesting to see what the combined mode looks like in general. The one thing with Generation Toy, the individual bot designs for their combiners, I always find them so attractive that it's almost tempting to get
not
2
combine
sets.
them. Yeah,
Or
right.
get 2
Yeah.
sets, because, you know,
Yeah.
I usually like the combined mode as well.
I'd love to.
But I
have two
love
sets.
a lot of the individual bot modes as well. So
I mean, overall, I think I agree with you guys. Aesthetic-wise, it does look good. I think I might agree with Brian that it's not necessarily streetwise to me.
I would
No.
agree. I don't think he's streetwise so much as not defense or streetwise.
Yeah.
He feels more like he would be another not character, like the way aesthetically, but he's definitely not a streetwise.
I think we were saying earlier he's kind of a blue streak, a white blue streak. Maybe.
Yes. White streak.
something like white streak.
Is it just me, or is he missing some red in his head sculpt as well?
Maybe, yeah, there could be a little red paint spattered out there.
Possibly, but I'm not sure.
I feel like even if it's not, it could have done with some contrast. I think maybe
mostly-
that's what
I think
throws
it was
me off a
mostly
bit.
white, so they are taking cues from the actual G1 design. So,
Got it.
but maybe you're right in the sense that they could have taken some liberties with that to make it, because then it's an all white sculpt, and it's actually quite a nice head sculpt. So to add a few tiny details to bring out some of the mold.
Might give it a little bit more character and
Like maybe a few gray accents or something.
The original street was more like an off-white kind of
Yeah.
ivory
Oh, it was,
type
yeah.
of color, right? This is more of a
Pure white.
pure white.
Well, that's where maybe that earlier, our off-camera discussion about maybe that they should have gone with the classic car rather than the modern car, and make it off-white on purpose to make it, get that homage to the original combiner. It would be different from a lot of the other companies doing the same combiner, because they've all kind of done the same thing in the sense of, it's all the modern versions of cars, and they make the white stark white and things like that.
yeah, totally.
But do you think this guy is also I'll call him a lesser bot in this case, because like he's going to be one of the feet, so he's going to sort of transform into a square half car kind of thing. The other guy's going to do a square. I'm pretty sure the hotspot's probably going to rock.
Yeah, I don't know
He'll
how.
probably be pretty detailed and more.
From a character
everything.
I
significance,
think
yeah,
so, too.
maybe he's not. He's maybe the
You
lowest
know?
out of them.
And then I'm sure the blades or whatever will be like super cool.
Well, the Blades,
swords
Blades is
and-
popular. So is Hotspot.
Yeah. he's
First
never
aid,
been
first aid's
streetwise.
been pulled into the IDW universe.
Yeah.
So he's
Getting
got a little
cooler
more
now.
significance.
And there's
Groove has
he made
gotta
fun
be-
of his alt mode. He's like, yeah, when your third alt mode is like a limb in one comic, and it's just like, yeah, you kind of feel useless at times when you're just by yourself.
Yeah, right.
Like he even makes fun of
like
the fact
tail
that
of Voltron.
yeah, it's like
He can hop around by himself.
They got to do the Groove Devastator crossover though, hey? They got to do that kind of the Groove head.
Yeah.
Is it?
no Prowl.
Or sorry, was that Prowl?
Oh,
Oh, my bad.
Prowl
Like the
Stater.
IDW,
I thought it was Groove, yeah.
IDW
Prowl Stater.
Devastator.
Yeah.
That's a crazy book.
I wish they would do that with their Generation Toys.
Which it'll be interesting what they do with the
the
Groove.
first one.
It would be interesting.
Because you get the scale problem with Groove. And,
Yes.
and
Yeah, he did. I
Either
was
you
just gonna
gotta
mention that.
pick one or the other. Like
Dude.
Hasbro went with
like
he's
36
just
foot
a separate
motorbike.
piece. He's more in scale to the other vehicles, whereas most of the third party have done it's just it is just what it is, and you get this gigantic motorcycle kind of. So we'll see what they do with the Groove.
I think this guy is quite a bit out of scale too, right?
Yeah, I guess
I'm not sure.
Groove should be
Probably.
a two-pack, so
I can't
instead
remember
of two
what
different sizes, and then you can change them.
Yeah.
Maybe
No
they'll
kidding.
do something interesting with it.
You know,
right?
that's a great idea though, like an alt mode with where you can change your transform however you want, but it comes with a scale motorcycle.
That'd be really
Just a
interesting.
separate doesn't transform
In
a scale
vehicle mode.
motorcycle. That'd be kind of cool because then you could use in vehicle mode now, just like Soundwave in the cartoon.
There you go.
Yeah.
Everybody else who shrinks.
Yeah, totally.
Megatron.
mass shifting.
I do think it's still recognizable though. Like when I look at it, I can tell that's Streetwise.
Mm-hmm.
He's got the dominant feature is the big windshield on his chest, right? And I think they've done a pretty good job with that.
And it's interesting, though, there's actually two versions of this. This is the North American police car, and there's actually I believe it's supposed to look like a Japanese police car. So to have the different, I don't know if you can see it from here.
Yeah.
In the vehicle mode, you'll see the red and blue emergency lights on the roof, whereas the Asian version is just the red lights like a Japanese police car would have. And it has the,
yeah.
and it has the police in kanji on the side.
Yeah.
So
That's right.
That's
interesting.
too. That is interesting because I feel like someone mentioned this earlier. It does seem like this is a little bit more of like the British police, not so much the American version. I think someone
that's true,
mentioned
okay.
that.
Put a
Like
little
you've got
top
the
hat and a
rims and a little
monocle.
bit of the emblems and stuff a little bit.
I'd be curious to see if the only difference is just the tampoing and the emergency light, or if they did something a little different with the Asian version.
And actually, everyone's going to want the Asian version if it's not available in North America. Because everyone wants the forbidden fruit, and vice versa. Everyone in Asia will want the North American one because And then there's
Yeah,
because they can't have it, so there'd be like a whole entire black market of switching between the two markets.
And there'd probably be
just trade
for labels for cheap people like me.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool if they the Asian version had the Japanese light bar. Yeah.
We'll be curious to see if they do
Yeah.
2 versions for each one, because some of them potentially could have the markings or
Oh, yeah,
the
especially like
emergency
the fire
vehicles,
truck.
the police, the ambulance. Do they do 2 versions of each? Do they do the different?
I'd rather have the Japanese for all of every single character.
It'd be interesting to see if they do it.
Yeah.
I think it'd be cool, but it would be a nightmare for the retailer. So do not ask for that.
Yeah.
So when are you getting it in, Boris?
Yeah. Are you getting that version?
I want my Canadian police car.
I want
That'll be a
RCMP.
retro labels special.
I want a little moose stickers for every moose's head.
Well, there you have it. Consensus, I think, is that it is, a solid first
Solid.
figure in the line for the Combiner. Maybe not exactly what you remember from the G1, but a great updated piece. And again, I think Generation Toys, stands behind their, detail on the bot mode. And I'm just interested to see how combine mode works, because I do know that in the past, the Menasor didn't work out as well for them. I know the Devastator was a little bit more popular in combine mode. Yeah, but definitely bot mode again seems to be a win, and a lot of great paint work, as Brian brought out, and a lot of good details in this guy. So there you have it. We've had our conversation about the Mayhem Mechanics Unrustables Burley and the Generation Toys Sarge domestic version. We highly recommend that you pick up and play with Burley yourself, because it's definitely one of those hands-on toys. Generation Toys seems like their same exceptional quality in bot mode, and as well as build and transformation. But let us know what you think, if you own the figure or if you don't. Leave us some comments in the section below.
And this has been another episode of the A3 Review Night. We'd like to thank our guest reviewers for this episode. We have Scott, Bob, and Brian. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Guys.
And don't forget, we still do run our other segments. A3U Review Night is just one of the segments that we run every about a month and a half.
Yeah, we do it bi-weekly.
When we have time.
Bi-weekly. Yeah, when we got time.
When we got time.
But definitely, like Alex said, let us know your thoughts, and stay tuned for our next episode, which I think we'll be getting back to some regular episodes where we do some comparisons and as well as our first looks.
And that wraps up our A3 Review Night. And A3 Review Night is not just about us, it's about you guys. If you are part of the local Transformers community, we would love to hear from you. So if you want to join in on this conversation, get in touch with us with this contact information that I'm pointing down at on the description box below, and we'd love to hear from you. Anyways, as always, if you enjoyed this episode and you want to see more, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, like us on Facebook, Ages3 and Up, and also follow us on Twitter at Ages3 and Up. And we'll see you on the next episode.